Hi everybody, this is Alan Barrell. So nice to be talking to you about one of my favorite subjects, raising money. Show me the money. Some of you have already raised money, some of you will be needing money. So this is a very important subject for anyone running or thinking of running or starting a business. It's a big subject. But before we get into the detail, let's remember we live in a world of opportunity, and it can be, in our mind, a world without borders. Not something the politicians have created, but a world where we can cross the barriers between countries and between cultures and make it a world for all people, a much better world. And here we are today, doing education across borders, and my life is about business without borders. Finance is global, and we can say that money is definitely the engine of one of the engines of growth and progress. Now, some of you have been involved in R&D, and many of you are trying to turn R&D into products. And we know that research and development is challenging in itself. And here's a little guy telling us that 1 out of 10 research development projects will succeed. That means that 9 will fail. And look what the boss is saying. Hey, I recommend cancelling the other 9. If only we knew which ones would fail at the beginning, but we don't know that, do we? So turning R&D into products is very challenging. And we can look at it in a very simple way like this. You have an idea, phase 1, you develop it into a concept, it then becomes a plan with architecture, and then you get it into a model stage and into a prototype stage, and eventually it gets into the market. Easy, isn't it? Think of all the stuff involved in doing that, and you're right at the beginning. And think of this too, those companies that might market it at the end of the day, they don't want any of the hassle that goes on at the beginning. So every stage of this process needs different kinds of skills. Innovation, creativity, then detailed engineering sometimes, detailed planning. And at every stage we need not only new skills, but we need to know that we can find money from different sources like I'm showing you here. So in the beginning we don't need much money. We can use our own money, and eventually we might get an R&D grant. We can then, when we get further along the line, go to the TSB, means Technology Strategy Board in the UK, or we could go to the European Union and get some money. That doesn't mean giving up our ownership. That grant money doesn't dilute our equity. But then perhaps we need more money, and we have to go to these wonderful business angels, rich people who invest in our business and take a share with us. Sometimes they're very good and very helpful. Moving on from there, if we want more than $1 million, we're probably going to need venture capital. And venture capital is much more difficult to get, and the venture capitalists are much more difficult to manage. We'll talk a little bit later about sources of finance. They often are applied in places where you see a lot of new companies being formed. But let's look at the sources of finance as we have seen them historically described in business school. Our money, do what you like with it. Family, friends and fools is the next stage of getting money. They don't mind too much if it goes down the tubes, usually. Be careful though. If your dear old auntie puts money into your business, have an agreement with her, because please God, she never gets Alzheimer's disease, but if she does, you may have a problem when the next round of investment is needed and she has to sign a legal contract. Then we go through business angels, seed funds, early stage venture capital, expansion capital. Pre-IPO means the stage before we do an initial public offering, taking our company to the market. Not much of that these days. And look at the end there. Bank finance, not much of that around. It's very difficult to get. We can get research money, we can get grants, as we've said. And entrepreneurial thinking and the internet are changing the world to the point where the sources of funding are now very different than they used to be before. The internet and entrepreneurial thinking have enabled much, much more Online financing, without banks, without venture capitalists. We talk about crowdfunding, we talk about peer-to-peer lending, and there are ways of getting money now that don't involve the kinds of institutions that have been so difficult in the past. We are talking about the democratization of access to finance. And we've got these things, the digital age and social networks. We can communicate brilliantly without going to too many meetings. A couple of years ago, this report was published, Understanding Alternative Finance. That's what we call online finance. The new report was published last week, and this is not the time to talk about the detail, but we can give you the report so you can read all about crowdfunding, peer-to-peer lending, and it's all summarized in these books. Peer-to-peer is lending online to other people or other companies. Crowdfunding can be donating to a charity to do research. It can be putting money into a platform for which you get a reward. 2 years ago, the man that founded a great games company, it was called Frontier Technology, and it had a game called Elite. After 2 years, the thousands of users of Elite said to the founder, "We need a new Elite, we want Elite Dangerous." And he said to them, "Show me the money." And he went to Kickstarter, one of the big crowdfunders in America, raised £1.5 million in 2 weeks, and got the job done and built the game. Now, wasn't that a wonderful example of raising money? Some people only put in £10, and also at the same time validating the market, because let me tell you this, 25,600 people put their money into that platform. He knew he had the market, he got the money, he produced the game, he didn't have to dilute his equity. But there is a form of crowdfunding, which we call equity crowdfunding, where you put your money into the platform and you get shares in the company, just like anyone else putting money in would get shares. Alternative finance have grown tremendously. In 3 years in the UK, it grew to be 1.7 billion. In this new report, it's now 3.2 billion in the UK, 90% growth this year. Absolutely amazing. Fantastic growth, very, very, very fast growth. So as I say here, 3.2 billion, 90% growth in the UK only. No time for detail here. The biggest part of online finance is lending, peer-to-peer, invoice trading, equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding is now over 200 million, growing very, very rapidly. And if you want the latest data, read the latest report. This is an encouraging slide because it shows you that it isn't only large amounts of money that get raised by crowdfunding. And I've already told you the great story of the Elite computer game that raised £1.5 million from 25,000 investors. The World Bank tells us that by 2025 in the developing world, the crowdfunding values will be almost 100 billion, and half of that will be in China. There's a report on crowdfunding and alternative finance in Europe. The European market last year was about 3 billion euros, and we reckon this year it will be 7 billion, and most of that will be in the UK. So very quickly, to wind it all up, if you want money, how do you get it? You better have a clear plan. You select the right people and you know them, you learn about them. You really need to know how much you need and what you're going to spend it on. You need to know you have the people to deliver the plan, and you need to know what to tell the funder that he will get if he puts his money in. I use this picture to show entrepreneurs what I look for as an investor. On the left-hand side, I'm looking for inspired leadership and all the soft skills that I know will help people to run a company successfully. And on the right-hand side, the more solid skills of management, financial control, and market knowledge, and so on. Now, if you're a very young company, you won't have all those skills. Don't worry about that, but do know that you will need them. And when you talk to the investor, be honest and say, we haven't got anyone in marketing yet, but we're going to get somebody. Don't tell the wrong things to the wrong people. Be honest. And you really do need to have good chairmen and good non-executive directors on your board. Presenting, take this list away and read it. Do your research. Have an executive summary. Be ready with your elevator pitch to enthrall the investor. Find out before you go for a formal presentation how the funder likes to be presented to. They don't all like PowerPoint. Don't send a detailed plan. Don't go alone. Take somebody with you so that you can get good feedback from the meeting. And answer the questions with clarity. If you don't know the answer, be honest and say so. And don't forget, yes and no can be good answers to questions. So, when it comes to the deal, use professionals. You have to use lawyers. Definitely, if you're signing contracts, you need to do so with legal advice. Valuing your company will be a minefield of argument and negotiation. And equity investors who are putting money in exchange for shares are going to want to know how they're going to get their money out in due course. You don't have to tell them that precisely, but you probably should have an idea of whether when your company is mature, you're going to sell it to another company or take it to a public market. The best investors will come alongside you on the journey and bring skills. And don't forget to tell the investor all about the market, the customers, and the product in as clear a way as you can. Have a clear business model. Use your network connections to get in to see investors. And then finally, what is it when I'm an investor that I'm looking for when I sit and you come and talk to me? Well, this great man, Einstein, told us something very important. He told us that imagination is more important than knowledge. So show imagination. All the great people that changed the world have had wonderful imagination. And what's an entrepreneur? Well, I think an entrepreneur, as George Bernard Shaw once said to a very young man, asking him stupid questions, "Hey, shut up. You look at things and ask why, but I dream of things that never were and ask why not." Entrepreneurs are why not people, and they never give up. Entrepreneurs change the world. The internet has revolutionized product development. The great inventor of the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, when asked why he did it, said, "I needed it for my work." So innovation is not only about getting up and having a brilliant idea, it is finding a better way of doing something than you've got today. And Tim Berners-Lee is a great example of innovation, turning ideas into good things. Don't forget the power of networking. Keep your networks alive and communicate well with everyone, and see what you can do to help create a world without borders. Add to your own wealth generally, add to that of the nation, help develop the economy, and don't forget that most of you are part of the next generation and you're going to determine the future of the world. And let's look forward to that. And if you get a chance to find this amazing book that's now out there as a second edition, Show Me the Money, it will help you on the way. How to finance business is all about how to start business, how to run business, how to make sure your business model is clear. So please, keep why not at the front of your mind and go and change the world. Thank you.